Howdy. Do I look all right? I'm at the Fort Meade Outdoor Recreation Area. Sitting at a picnic table. It's cut in a little nook cut into the woods right off the drive around the park. The main body of the park is just a whole bunch of scattered oak trees, picnic tables scattered here and there. There are two big pavilions for events. The main one is closest to the entrance, and there's another one back amongst the oak trees that's smaller. But for birthday parties or anniversaries or reunions or that sort of thing. The park actually gets quite a bit of use. It's not far, well, it's just off US 98, headed east. It's fairly accessible. There's an airplane going overhead right now. After we left the house in the grapefruit grove, we moved out east of town a couple of miles to a little wood frame 2-bedroom house. It was built up on piers. It was up off the ground. Had a little front porch and a little back porch. And it was in a pasture. So the yard area was fenced off with barbed wire. And the unpaved driveway leading up to the house was fenced off on both sides. And of course there was a fence line running along the road. But and there were cattle all throughout that pasture. It was I think if I'm correct in my memory or assumptions, the cows and the land belonged to A.C. Wright, and probably the house too. That's probably who we rented from, but I'm not sure of that at all. The area was pasture, like where we lived, and farming. There were, most of our neighbors did truck farming. One family I know for sure, the Stories, that was how they earned their living, was in truck farms, raising crops to take to market. There was a farmer's market in Plant City where crops were auctioned. And a lot of the other neighbors also raised crops for market. They may have had other jobs, but their extra income came from those crops that they took to market. But Dad raised a good-sized garden just to the north side of the house that we ate from. We didn't sell any of that. The Stories, that was their way of living. And they also had a small orange grove and chickens. They had a fairly large chicken coop, and they sold eggs. And it was like a drive-up market. People from town would come out to the Stories to buy eggs. I don't think they sold them anywhere else. It was just to folks, local area people. But they didn't take those to market or anything like that. They didn't have any agreement with a grocer or anything of that sort. But most of the neighbors were, you know, 1/8 of a mile, 1/4 of a mile apart. And the houses had, you know, farmland all around. We, let's see, my sister was in school, rode the bus to school. And while we lived there, my brother started school. So the two of them rode the bus together. But when school was out, or during the summertime, we played a lot. It was nice being out in the country, different from living in an orange grove. You could see long distances, and we had all sorts of games we could play. There were a lot of pine trees as well, particularly right there around the house. I remember on one occasion there were two bulls that were separated in different pastures, but not in distance. There was only a barbed wire fence in between them. But apparently they got too close to each other at some point and decided that they had to have a fight to determine who was the stronger bull. But they ripped through the fence that separated them. And I think they must have fought from south to north, because they went through the fence on the south side of our driveway and then fought their way through the fence on the north side of our driveway and kept fighting. And it wasn't necessarily the one bull. They were circling when they would do it, so it was hard to tell who was in the lead, but they were mainly migrating north. So north was kind of uphill, so I guess one or the other was trying to get the higher ground. It wasn't a real steep slope, but there was a noticeable slope. So typically male animals that are trying to establish superiority or trying to get high ground. So, and this is just speculation now, not when I was a kid. I had no idea. Just standing on the porch watching these bulls fight and hoping they didn't come to the house. And they didn't. They were too tangled up with each other. But I don't know if they finally just got tired, or if AC Ride or one of the men that worked for him came and got them separated and back in their respective pastures. But that was some excitement for a 3-year-old. My brother had a tendency to wander. I have no idea why. I never really questioned him about it. He would just leave. He'd take off walking. I wouldn't say anything about where he was going or what he had in mind to do. He would just not be there. So, and for whatever reason, I never told my mom Norm was leaving. My sister didn't either. He would just walk off. We'd let him go about his business. Well, one day he walked down the driveway and turned and walked up the road, or walked south on the road. Maybe he was going to see the Wyndhams. They had 2 boys that were fairly close to mine and my brother's ages. And maybe he was going there. I have no idea. But after some period of time, half hour, I don't really know. But AC Ride and 3 or 4 men on horseback came up the driveway. And as they got closer, I could see that AC had my brother sitting on the saddle in front of him, holding him with his arm so he wouldn't fall off. And I ran down off the porch and ran out there to the yard and started yelling, "You put my brother down. You put my brother down." And that got my mom's attention. She came out to see what was going on, and that was her first indication that Norman had taken off. Of course, she went up and AC handed Norman down to her, and she thanked him for bringing him back. Of course, AC had, when they came across him, they knew who he was and knew where he lived, so AC didn't want him wandering by himself, so he just picked him up and brought him back home. After they dropped him off, they went back about their business, whatever they were doing, fence repair or whatever. But one more incident that we had that I recall, and this one was fairly vivid because of the fright I got. But my brother and sister and I were in the backyard, and my mom was there as well. And I don't remember what we were doing while we were there, but I remember I was sitting on a fuel crate that had been turned on its side, and my brother was standing close to me. And my mother saw a coach whip coming from the area of the house and headed toward the pasture. And coach whip is, they look like a black snake, but they're a separate species. They can be anywhere from dark brown to tan to black. And their scale pattern looks like it's braided, so I guess that's where they get the name coach whip. But they can get 4 or 5 feet long, and apparently this was a pretty good size one. But my mother saw it, and it was headed right towards where my brother was standing. And my mother started telling my brother, "Don't move, don't move, don't move." And the coach went slithered right between my brother's feet. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think under the fuel crate. And the fuel crate moved, which gave me quite a start. I wasn't sure if the snake made it move or my brother made it move, but it scared me anyway. And coach whips are a non-venomous snake. They're fairly harmless. They're aggressive hunters. They don't sit and wait. They move around looking for something to eat. So they're good varmint snakes if you got. They're very. There's a lot of them in the South. They have a wide range, but rats and mice, other snakes, they're good for any kind of varmint pest control. But anyway, that's neither here or there. Just the fact that I remember it well because I was quite startled by the whole event. I was afraid I was going to get bitten by a snake or whatever, even though, like I say, now I know they're harmless. Then I had no idea. I just knew it was a snake. And as a kid, I was afraid of snakes. I'm sure there are other memories that will come to me in relation to that time frame when we lived out there in the country. And if they come to me, I'll relate them in future videos. But as far as this one, that'll do.